The 573rd edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 100 times your entry with the Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. Sign up with promo code MMA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer of up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. We're also brought to you by Mega Memorial Merch Sale. 15% off everything in the SGPN merch store with promo code SGPNMay.
Heidi ho, DeGenerinos, and welcome to episode 573 of the MMA Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. This one's dedicated to Zemo KC, one of our friends in the Discord who's been talking regional MMA with the Gumby God himself. This is another regional episode we got for you here before we're taking a couple of days off. I'm one of your host, Jeff Chalks Fox. Today we're doing Urijah Faber's A1 Combat 21 Faber versus Glover. And that is going down this coming weekend. We've got we've got 4 events we've covered for this coming Saturday. So it may not be any UFC on Saturday, but we've got, I think 8 a.m. is when the first event starts Eastern. And then the last one starts at 10 p.m. So you got a full day's worth. And a lot of people in our Discord will be watching every second of it. So maybe even the man I'm going to introduce now. He is the best regional MMA capper in the world because he went 20-2 last week, and it's the one and only Daniel Gumby Vreeland. Hello.
Last week I debated you. This week I'm just going to accept the accolade.
I'm putting the pressure on you. I mentioned it every time.
I will just say this: like, I could have a really bad week this week, But I did go 4-0 in LFA, and I did go 16-2 in Road to the UFC, and there is. There's not a lot of people out there with much confidence in their road to the UFC plays.
No.
Laren Douglas forever will be my favorite fighter
Yes.
of all time. Shout out to Laren Douglas. You rule, man. Plus 250 underdog. That I was maybe my most confident pick of all time. So maybe let's get Laren Douglas to the UFC.
I prefer to call him Dougie Douglas.
Larian Douglas?
Yeah, Dougie Douglas, which is his nickname, yes. Yeah, so Gumby did good. Even if he does bomb this weekend, he's going to be up money on his regional picks for the year. So hopefully you've been riding with him all year long, in case this is the weekend that he bombs. Hopefully not.
You're prefacing it.
It's true, just in case.
It sounds like this is an event he'd suck at.
Yes, maybe. This is our 4th one, right? Sunday.
4th regional event
Monday,
this week.
Tuesday, Sunday. We did one Sunday.
Sunday was a recap.
Okay, right. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Right. Okay. And this one is, as I said off the top, Urijah Faber's A1 Combat 21 Faber versus Glover. Faber is listed. Urijah Faber, the gentleman who runs the this year promotion, he's listed in the main event, but it is not a MMA fight. It is a combat jiu-jitsu fight. So we will not be breaking down that fight. Who's this Jeff Glover guy? You know anything about him?
Yeah, he was like a big deal in the grappling scene like a ways ago. He was like a fun grappler. He used to do like a lot of viral social media posts about grappling and stuff like that. Like, he was kind of fun, but I don't think he was ever like, a serious big challenger. But it's like an interesting one for Faber because Faber's a good wrestler, but who knows in terms of pure jiu-jitsu, if somebody gets in on a leg or something like that, what he'll be able to do. So maybe that's why he made it combat jiu-jitsu, so he can at least palm slap the guy in the head when he shoots for a heel hook.
Yeah. So combat jiu-jitsu, you can
open hand smack.
Okay. And that's it, right? No other.
You can basically go bass rooting on people.
Right. Which is which can do some damage, that's for sure. So all right. So Urijah Faber versus the pipe layer, Jeff Glover.
There you go. There's the viral stuff that he works with.
That probably could have been Urijah Faber's nickname too, before he got married, don't you think?
I don't know. Was Urijah Faber a ladies' man? Is that what we're making a joke about?
Look at the guy. Of course he's
got a butt on his chin.
I know, but we're not ladies. All the ladies that listen, let us know.
Yeah, ladies who listen to our show, in the comments, please comment Urijah Faber is sexy or Gumby's right, Urijah Faber is gross.
And Gumby rules. Also, obviously, always Gumby rules. You know who does rule for sure is our Rod and Cody. If you don't know them, they host the NASCAR Gambling Podcast for us and the F1 Gambling Podcast, and it's a big week for them. It's the biggest week in racing. Indy 500, Monaco Grand Prix, and the Coke 600 all going down. Rod and Cody have you covered on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast and the F1 Gambling Podcast. Plus, make sure to enter their Kyle Larson diecast car giveaway. That's free to enter. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/race to register, and make sure to subscribe to the NASCAR Gambling Podcast and the F1 Gambling Podcast. And we got a merch sale. Not just any merch sale. It's a mega Memorial Day merch sale. 15% off everything in the merch store. Promo code SGPN May. Get yourself some MMA Gambling Podcast gear. Get sticky while you're in there too. Go sportsgamblingpodcast.com/store. All right. So I set up the event. We're not covering the Faber fight because we don't do combat jiu-jitsu around these parts. Strictly MMA. This is going down in Visalia, California, this Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern. So like I said, we have you covered. I think we have 8 a.m., 12 a.m. What was the one yesterday that we did?
8, 12, 7, and 10.
Yes, there you go. You're covered for the day. This one's on UFC Fight Pass. Makes it even easier for you. 11 fights on the card. Gumby cherry picked the 5 that he thinks are most interesting for you here, people, and we're going to break them down. Now, last episode on Cage Titans, you had seen all the people in person. I'm assuming that's not the case here, but how hard was it to get some research done on some of these people?
Not hard to do research on any of them. A lot of them had fought for Urijah before, or CFFC, or like some other bigger promotions. So like, I wasn't really hard to find them, but I did have to go looking for. I mean, I know Chris Mecate, I know Christian Avalos, but outside of that, this was a research heavy episode.
All right. We're starting things off with a bantamweight fight, 3 500 rounds. Ricardo Vasquez versus Blake Decourcy. Any relation? I don't think is it spelled the same as Jaleon?
It's spelled differently. She's got an
E, I think.
E
right?
in there. Yeah, there's an E in there.
All right. No relation. This Decourcy is the snake. 1-0 with 1 knockout. That fight happened in A1. He's 10 years younger than Vasquez, 2 inches taller. Vasquez 1-0 as well. He won his fight via submission. This is his debut in A1. His fight, however, took place in Bellator. So he fought maybe on a high level. It's kind of hit and miss with Bellator.
It's a Bellator prelim.
Back in September 2017. So has not fought professional MMA since that time. And that's all I got here. No odds yet. Where can we usually get odds for Urijah Faber? Bet online.
Yeah, this is a BOL spot here.
Okay.
Sometimes they've showed up. I want to say I saw him one time on DK, but like I'm not positive. I am gonna say this is gonna be a pretty closely lined fight because, as you mentioned, both 1-0, both for semi-decent promotions. Right, you said Decourcy was Faber and Vasquez was Bellator. So like hard to distinguish the difference between a Bellator prelim and an A1 combat fight. So I'm gonna say pick 'em. And I'm gonna take Decourcy over Vasquez. The reason being 2 things. First of all, he's a lot longer. I think when this fight is on the feet, it's going to be really hard for Vasquez to hit Decourcy because he looks bigger. He uses that reach better. Vasquez doesn't look like he closes distance very well. And then the other reason why is I like Decourcy's wrestling quite a bit better than Vasquez. I've seen in both of their fights, and not even just their pro fights, but if you want to go back to their amateur stuff, I've seen both of them get in on takedowns. And Vasquez uses a lot of muscle when he does so. It's a lot of like grabbing stuff and trying to like almost like turn and like pull his opponent to the ground with him, which has been working on like low-level amateur fighters. Whereas Decourcy, you get like big slams and stuff like that out of him. You get a good double leg. You get smart moves against the cage. And I think all of those things are going to play up. So between the length and the fact that he's like a little bit more technical when it comes to the wrestling, that also tends to mean you're going to use a little bit less energy in those moments too. So maybe even like, gains momentum as the fight goes. I'll take Blake Decourcy, probably pick him price here.
All right. Decourcy as a pick him. We shall accept that. Hopefully it's a dog though, right? We prefer our dogs. All right. We're going to up the fight card to a main card fight. This is at featherweight. Shane Collins versus Sal Bruno. 3 5-minute rounds. Featherweight. Bruno the Bull. Sal the Bull. Bruno. 2-2 with 1 submission. He's been submitted 1 time. 1-1 in A1 combat. Did lose his last fight. Used to fight at bantamweight. Collins 0-0 as a pro. 9-2 as an amateur. 3 knockouts, 4 submissions. Never was finished in his amateur career. 2-0 as a pro kickboxer. Do you actually have info on Collins, Gumby?
I've seen him fight a bunch of times.
Right.
I went and watched a bunch of his, because you mentioned 9-2 as an amateur. Not just 9-2 as an amateur. He was an IMMAF guy.
Yeah.
So that is the tippy top of amateur. And he didn't advance super far in any of those tournaments. So, like, we're not talking about him being like a world champ or something like that. Like Mohamed Wakayev, that was his sort of path to everything. Or, you know, like Jose Shorty Torres and like guys like that. So like Collins isn't that level, but he has fought really high level people in IMMAF, and he's qualified for tournaments and stuff like that. So he's a real high level guy. I think they're setting him up with a fight here. My guess is that the books are already going to know they're setting him up with a fight because it's a 2-2 pro, and then they're going to see the EME record of this guy, and they're going to be like, oh, A1's trying to lay him in one. I'm going to guess Collins will come in at -350. If for some reason the books are wrong, and or don't pay enough attention to, like, oh, you know, this newbie's gonna get crushed, and they list him at -200 or -150, pump that line up until it gets to -350, because Shane Collins is obviously the pick here. Sal Bruno, the only real thing I like out of Sal Bruno is like he throws a nice low leg kick. The only problem is he throws it a little bit too much, and he does it while he's moving backwards. But like, you know, he's got a nice low leg kick. Collins is sharp. He cuts angles extremely well. His footwork is really quick. His hands are really quick. He's got the takedowns. He's got the knockout power. He's got really good submissions. Like, it's hard for me to point at one thing that I like about Shane Collins, because he seems like he does everything exactly about as well as something else. You know what I mean? Like his jiu-jitsu is just as good as his wrestling. His wrestling's just as good as his kickboxing. His angle cutting is just as good as his pressure. Like, all of that kind of stuff is it's just hard to distinguish. He's an all-around really good guy, and he's fluid on the feet too. The stuff all chains together really well. So for a guy in Sal Bruno, I think he's just kind of being the lamb being fed to slaughter here. I think Shane Collins ought to be a -500 favorite. I bet you he posts at like -350 to start. But if he does, like I said, if he comes in lower than that, pump in on the 0-0 Shane Collins here.
What is too high to pick Shane Collins?
I mean, it depends on what your appetite for risk is, right? Because he is still an 0-0 guy. I'm going to tell you at -500, I would still think there's value on him if you wanted to throw him in a parlay, or if you're a guy who doesn't mind laying big money for low returns. Like, if that's the type of bettor you are, you don't mind taking you don't mind spending -650 on the Celtics on the money line to play the Wizards. If you're that guy, you shouldn't mind that about Shane Collins here either. But if you're a person like me who usually prefers the lines to be a little bit closer before they're interested in them, yeah, maybe when it gets up to -500, the line just doesn't excite me anymore, and I'm not so interested in it. So I think there's still value at -500. But again, that all depends on the type of bettor you are.
All right. Before we move on, let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing the pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. Make entries of all basketball or mix and match across your other favorite sports. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Pull up the UnderdogFantasy.com home screen. Check out their daily specials on there. Plus, new customers get a pick'em special in the lobby when they sign up. Underdog will also be running a ton of different promos, bonus cash airdrops, specials, giveaways, and more throughout the NBA playoffs. So make sure to follow at Underdog Picks on Twitter to keep an eye out. Underdog is available in 30+ states, including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. Sign up with our code MMA SGPN. It can be your code too, to claim your special pick, and first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MMA SGPN. All right, we are moving on with more winning picks for you here. This one is main card fight at lightweight. Shane Christie versus Kohl Laren. 3 5-minute rounds. Laren 2-1 with 2 knockouts. 1-0 in A1 combat. He's won 2 straight fights. So he lost his debut, won 2 straight since then. Has he been finished in a fight? I usually tell you that, and I forgot to tell you this time. I don't think he has. I'm going to check, though, so I can stay consistent with these things, because it matters, I'm sure, with you betting. No, he got lost via decision, so never been finished in a fight. All right. Christie, 2-0, 1 knockout, 1 submission. So these guys owe us rounds. 2-0. Both those fights happened in A1 combat. Used to fight at welterweight. That's all I got. So hopefully Gumby has more info than I do on these people.
So I think Christie's going to be a big favorite. We'll say -250 plus 220 on the return for Laren. And this is my first interesting stab at an underdog here. I'm going to take Kohl Laren here. I think the reason people are high on Christie are pretty obvious. He's a pretty good wrestler. When he gets in on your legs, and it takes him a little while to close the distance. Maybe he's not particularly great on that. I mean, he is on a regional card in Visalia, California. So, maybe he's not an expert at that yet. It takes him a little while to close the distance, but when he does close the distance, the way he gets on in your legs is really impressive. And I think for that reason, people are high on him and think he's going to be a decent prospect and stuff like that. The caveat to that is that I'm gonna take a page out of the Jeff Fox book here in making picks. Yeah. Everybody can look shocked, but now when I get it wrong, I can at least blame it on him. Kohl Laren is not a better wrestler than Shane Christie, but he does throw a mean right hand. Like, he just throws a bomb. So I'm taking the striker over the grappler.
Nice.
In perfect Jeff Fox fashion. And I will say, for the reason that Laren throws a big punch, and also, as I mentioned, Christie kind of takes a while to close the distance. And sometimes when he does, his head doesn't move off the center line enough. I've seen Laren get knockouts to like 33 seconds and like 28 seconds. When he does hit, he hits really hard. And so, like, if Christie does come in and is trying to find those legs and can't quite figure out how to enter, and he's there on the outside with his head on the center line, it will only take one of Kohl Laren's right hands to really put him down. And if he does that, and you're going to get 2-1, I think there's a better than 2-1 chance that Kohl Laren gets it done. So give me Laren on some dog money here. I definitely think he'll be a dog too.
All right. I never get picks wrong, so that's good. Follow my lead. Perfect. All right. There's a pop-up ad in my way as we head to the next fight. There we go. What a surprise. Featherweight fight. Jaleon Reid versus Chris Mecate is what we're going with. Hey, pop up again, Gumby. I'm telling you, Tapology. I know you need money. All right, Mecate, 7-2, 2 knockouts, 1 submission. He's been knocked out once, submitted once, so he's been finishing both his losses. This is his A1 combat debut. He's won 6 of his last 7, including his last fight. He went 1-1 in LFA. He's 2 inches taller than Reid. Alston is the nickname for Reid. He's 4-1, 1 knockout, 3 submissions. He's been submitted 1 time. He owes his rounds. Damn it. 1-0 in A1 combat. Won his last fight via submission. That was back in May of 2022. So he's been on the shelf for a couple years. All righty. Fill in the blanks.
Yeah, so between Reid being on the shelf and Mecate having just that longer resume, and actually, a pretty good resume if you look at the quality and caliber of opponents he's fought, I think Mecate's going to be a favorite. Maybe not as large as Christie in that Laren fight. So we'll say -200 for Mecate, plus 170 on the return for Jaleon Reid. I'm going to go Reid here. I'm going to go dog in a row here. And the reason being is that if you watch Mecate, I'm not really impressed with his hands in the way that he works on the feet. He wrestles pretty well. I think that's kind of a theme that we're seeing over and over again in the A1 combat ranks. It's like a lot of these guys are either, from alpha male or inspired by alpha male or, close to a team alpha male. Yeah. And so you see a lot of guys who can wrestle and maybe their striking hasn't come along fast enough, or have the Chad Mendez style of striking, which is called big overhand right until I'm tired. Yeah. And like Chris Mecate, he doesn't expend too much energy striking, but sometimes that's actually the problem, is he just doesn't put enough into it. But his wrestling's good. The difference maker for me here is Jaleon Reid is explosive. This dude, when he decides to shoot in on a takedown, he is in there really quick, big, explosive movements. Do I think that's maybe a deterrent to his cardio? Probably. But in the meantime, man, I don't know that Mecate will be able to deal with his physicality. And on the feet, like I said, Mecate is a guy who doesn't throw a lot. He's not a guy who moves forward particularly well. He's not a guy who lets his hands go. Reid isn't either, but Reid, when he does throw, he jumps in and out of range well, which I think is going to throw Mecate off here too, is that, he bounces in and out, and when he's in, he gets in, hits you real quick, and then he gets out of the way. When you overextend, again, he gets in on those legs really big. He's got a big high crotch takedown that he uses. He uses a big double leg. Jaleon Reid is explosive, and granted, the 2 years away certainly scares me. But I think we could probably capitalize that and use it for better odds here. So I'm going to go with Jaleon Reid, probably a slight dog as well.
All right, there we go. Before we move on to the main event, I'm going to tell you about a newer sponsor of ours called Rhythm. It is spelled RITHMM. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning your algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks, which you can make wherever you normally place your bets or DFS picks. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player props, lines, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll a sportsbook. Rhythm also allows you to create your own custom NBA models so you can get AI-backed money line spread and total picks for every playoff game. Start a free 7-day trial and start winning with NBA player props with Rhythm. Available wherever you get your apps. All right. I was going to say main event, but it's technically not the main event. The last MMA fight on the fight card is for the A1 Combat Lightweight Championship. Current champ Christian Avalos versus challenger Justin Cornell. It says they only do 3 rounds. It says 3 5-minute rounds. Do you know?
I don't know if that's true.
All right. Tapology, you could be lying. It could be 3 rounds. It could be 5. How's that for info, people? All right. Cornell will tell you about first challenger. 5-2, 1 knockout, 1 submission. He's been knocked out once. 2-1 in A1 combat. Loss win over his last 4. Used to fight at featherweight. Avalos, the land shark, 4-1 with 4 submissions. Never been finished in a fight. 3-0 in A1 combat. Is the interim champ. Currently, he's won 3 straight fights. He's not lost since November of 2021. Used to fight at welterweight. So we got a welterweight versus a featherweight here, formally.
Yeah, I think Avalos is going to be a big favorite here, but I'm going to talk about him in the same way I talked about Joji and Eddie in yesterday's episode. He's probably going to be a negative 350 favorite here. If he opens there, I don't think I can get down on it. I like Avalos. He's got good jiu-jitsu. I like his wrestling. He's clearly not a complete fighter yet, but he's early in his career still. The problem is with Justin Cornell is I want to say he's a Diaz guy. At least from when I watched him, I remember thinking I'm pretty sure this is a Diaz guy. He's got a Diaz guy vibe. For those of you who will be watching A1 Combat, enjoy Justin Cornell because even if he doesn't win this fight, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. He's going to move forward. He's going to throw a ton early. He's going to be a little reckless. I ultimately think that means he'll walk into a takedown from Christian Avalos because, like I said, Avalos, I like his ground game. I like his wrestling. I like everything about that part of his game. But at the same time, as if he is negative 350 and probably a worse striker here, and Cornell is going to jump out maybe to a round lead if he can stuff the early takedowns. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm worrying that he won't get a takedown in one of these rounds. And as a result, we'll lose a sloppy decision at a price like negative 350. Again, if he was at negative 200, I'd be all over him. I think the takedowns are going to be there. And I think he's going to win the fight. I just don't want to get down on that number at, what it's probably going to be, which is negative 350, negative 400. So ultimately I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go Christian Avalos. Think the takedowns will be there. I think he'll be able to deal with the Diaz-iness of Justin Cornell. I really hope he's a
no. I looked it up. Yeah, it's Cesar Gracie.
Okay,
okay. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Dude, seriously, watch one of his fights, and you're there's no way this guy doesn't know the Diaz brother. But I think that will make you sweat a little bit at the beginning. And again, at negative 350, I don't want any of that sweat. I think Avalos scores the takedowns and wins this fight. But yeah, this isn't as wide as the line will most likely make it look.
All right. Here are Gumby's winning picks for you for Uriah Faber's A1 Combat this coming weekend. Avalos, Reid, Laren, back-to-back dogs there, hopefully. Collins and Decourcy, hopefully a dog as well. A pick 'em at the very least. Do you have any lightning round picks for this card or not?
Yeah, I got one.
All right.
I dug into this card. A lot of people I didn't know on the undercard, tried to do a little research. And then there was one that stuck out to me. A guy who was actually a hot prospect coming off of being an amateur and then lost his pro debut. So we're going to see him as an 0-1 guy. I think they're giving him a debutante, which means, like probably a good path to victory. But his name is Enoch Mecate, and he was such a highly touted prospect as an amateur, and I think people jumped ship after losing his debut. Hopefully the books do the same. I have no idea how the books are going to line an 0-1 guy versus an 0-0 guy on a regional card like this. But if they do give you Enoch Mecate at a dog price or anywhere near even money, I jump on that because like his prospect status for me has not waned. He had one bad fight. And I think, up against the debutante, I think he's probably going to roll quickly. So give me that as my lone lightning round pick here for A1 combat.
All right. Even I've heard of that guy. So
oh, really?
I think so. I think we talked about him before on the show. I'm not sure.
It's totally possible.
Yeah. I have heard of him. All right. There you go. A1 combat in the books for you. We'll be back Sunday. Did you look, Gumby? Like I said, there's nothing happening next week in regional MMA. So
I think you're wrong.
No, KSW is a week after. So we're gonna have to do some shows a week early because there's way too much.
There's Octagon the next week.
Yeah,
there's
2 weeks.
LFA the next week.
Cage Warriors.
Yeah, so we'll just do a
KSW one championship.
You guys are gonna get early looks.
Exactly, early looks. You can get it on the lines the second they drop. So that will be starting at Sunday, but then the UFC is back next week. So as of Wednesday, we shall be breaking down a pay-per-view UFC event, UFC 302. All right. In the meantime, we shall be in the Discord, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. You can check us out on Twitter. Gumby runs our account at SGPN MMA. He's at Gumby Vreeland. I'm at Jeff Fox Writer there. And on Instagram, you can check out my Substack. I run a weekly UFC pick'em contest and do all my MMA writing there. It's moneymma.substack.com. Gumby's got Top Turtle MMA podcast coming to you weekly as well, minus me. Who's on it this week, Gumby?
We're talking with Torres Finney before his second shot on the Contender Series, and Orlando Prince, who is fighting for the Cage Warriors belt this Saturday.
Terrifying Torres Finney. Does he have a nickname? It should be Terrifying if he doesn't.
The Punisher, Torres Finney.
Nope. Terrifying Torres Finney is his new nickname. I have decided. All right. What else can you do? YouTube. Please, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Our numbers are starting to go up. We want to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark at the very least. So check us out there. What else can you do? That'll be Money and MMA Gambling Podcast. That will be the one. And then, of course, sportsgamblingpodcast.com, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/store, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Gumby, bid them farewell.
All right. I'm Dana Gumby Vreeland. He's the Kitchener Kid, Jeff Fox, and we will see you on Sunday.